So I almost titled this video that I signed up for the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life, but I thought about that for a minute and I'm like, no, that's not really true. And don't ask me what that was, I'm not going to tell you. So welcome everyone, I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. And no, I'm not changing this into some sort of triathlon channel. I'm basically the worst person to ask when it comes to training for those kind of events. However, if you do want to know how to run fast over short distances, that's my specialty. About 9% of those come from 5K-ish and a little bit longer races. However, the craziest thing I decided to sign up for, because I got in the sport of triathlon last year as well, an IRONMAN 70.3, which is a 70.3 mile triathlon, and got some work to do for training for that. I'll be competing at IRONMAN Michigan next September with Team Hope Wider International. Want to learn a little bit more about them? I'll put a link to their website down in the description of the video. However, what I'm talking about today is something I'm pretty good at, and that is building some custom 3D printed objects. In this case, I'm working on a mount for my aerobars here that's going to let me put my Garmin Forerunner watch in place. I can see my stats for training purposes. And this workflow process, even though it's for a bike thing, the basic ideas behind it can apply to any type custom 3D printed project. Now, an important disclaimer here is that this type of mount, while it's good for training, it may not be legal for Ironman racing. However, triathlon rules in general are a bit sketchy. They're about as well written as an infamous Warhammer 40,000 Overwatch rule, which has the phrase "and so on" in it. You guys know what I'm talking about. That's probably the worst rule in the history of tabletop gaming. Alright, let's get to the project. To start here, I've got a photo of myself holding my aero bars, and I'm using this to create a basic sketch of what I'm trying to create. Now, there's two main things I'm trying to accomplish with this sketch here. One is get the basic shape of the final object, and two is to figure out what the key dimensions are. Now, of course, 3D printing an object takes a long time because 3D printers are still really slow. So by identifying a couple key dimensions, what I can do is build essentially templates, we'll call them, that are used to solve what these exact dimensions should be. And therefore, I can print off these small pieces, figure out these important bits of information, and get that all sorted out before I try to build the entire object, because if I'm going to be reprinting an entire object to change things by 1-2 millimeters, that's a very slow and inefficient process. Aerobars do have a fairly standard diameter, and it's about 22.5 millimeters, but just to make sure, I'm going to pull out my calipers and measure those. From here, I'm going to use Blender to create a simple little piece to figure out exactly how big of a diameter I need to create a clamp around the aero bars. The important note here, of course, is the exact diameter of a circle when it comes to 3D printing is affected by not only the size of the circle, but also certain things about your 3D printer, like say nozzle diameter and how fast you print it, things like that. So it's probably not a bad idea to create the diameter of the circle to be about 0.5 millimeter larger than what you measured. I can then print this piece out, try it out on the aero bars and see if it fits before moving on to the next key dimension. My next key dimension is going to be the distance between the two aero bars. I first tried to use my calipers, but in this case the distance is just too large for these cheap, crappy is a good word, calipers that I have right here, so I got to fall back to using a tape measure. Of course, a tape measure is not going to work nearly as well as calipers. It's obviously a lot less precise of a tool, especially when we're talking millimeters here. Therefore, I'm going to estimate a distance, model it up, print the piece off, see how it fits, and adjust from there. And in this case, it takes me about 3 tries of these template pieces to get the exact distance between the aero bars. So I have one more important thing to figure out before I design the overall piece. For safety purposes, I don't want to have any little metal bolts sticking out of this thing, just in the event there's an accident. Got a plan for those things. What I'm going to use is a process where in the bottom half of the clamps, I'm going to have some slots modeled into the 3D printed part where I'm going to stick in a nut that will then capture the bolt and hold it all together without actually having any parts of the bolt sticking out. So let me model that up and solve that little problem right now. I've pinned down the exact measurements I need for the key features, as well as some of the more interesting design aspects. I got those sorted out as well. So let's design the first version of the complete watch mount. Alright, the piece is done. Let's try it out and, crap. It's a little bit too big for my setup here. Let's go back to Blender, change the dimensions, then try this one more time. Well, that's enough warming up in here in Rotopia. While we're waiting for a 3D print to finish, let's go for a time trial. A time trial is one of the ways to keep track of my progress here over the winter. It's about 11-mile-ish race, where it's all about dumping as much power into it as you can for a short distance. Well, there you go. That's a pretty good start to the project. I might tweak things just a little bit because I want some more secure of a grip on my aero bars here, so I might move the mount up and forward towards me, so it sits over the torpedo water bottle mount just a little bit more. But with all that, thank you guys all for watching. Once again, I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. I'll be making a few more videos in this series between now and IRONMAN Michigan, following along with weird projects related to triathlon, working on, and that kind of fun stuff. And finally, if you are a triathlete and you made it to the end of the video, and you're like, what the heck is up with this bike? It's a long story. This is how I like to ride the bike. This is probably how it's going to stay for Ironman. So yeah, just learn to deal with it. See you guys later.